Authorities continue to search for the remains of a Texas realtor, while her husband of more than 2 decades remains locked up, charged with her murder. Suzanne Simpson, a mom of 4, vanished on October 6 after a fight with her husband Brad, only she hasn't been heard from or seen since. According to officials, it doesn't appear Suzanne would make a safe return home after Brad allegedly physically assaulted her on October 6. This theory was also echoed by the couple's daughter, who wrote in a heartbreaking Instagram post she believed her father took her mom's life in a state of rage. While Suzanne's body hasn't been found, police have pieced together a detailed timeline that led up to what they believe to be her untimely death. Back in August, Suzanne allegedly revealed to her personal banker that she was being physically abused by her husband. She reportedly said Brad would often take away her cell phone and that her husband would tell their children she had lost her phone. She reportedly made an eerie revelation to her banker and said if she ever went missing, to look for her in a lake. The following month, Brad messaged an unidentified woman saying, "I still feel bad about tonight. I never should have grabbed her phone," and drove off, but she was protective of it. "My dumb didn't know her passcode, so I got locked out and had to bring it back. I really had no interest in looking through her phone or anybody else's. These devices are the devil." That woman later told investigators that Suzanne was aware her husband would track her and that he was extremely jealous. Then on the day Suzanne disappeared, the couple and their 5-year-old daughter went to a party in Alamo Heights, where witnesses claimed to have seen the couple get into a verbal argument while at the party. Then at about 8:30 that evening, Suzanne and her daughter left the party to go to the grocery store H-E-B. Surveillance footage obtained by police reportedly showed her in the store from 8:40 to 8:51 p.m., and they left. By 9:15 that night, Suzanne called a family friend saying she was coming over, but a minute later, she reportedly called her mom to tell her husband had just assaulted her, and it caused pain to her arm, neck, and back. Then at 9:25, she arrived to the family friend's house. However, half an hour later, everything would change for the entire Simpson family. After 10 a.m., a neighbor witnessed Suzanne and Brad in a heated argument and witnessed a physical struggle. As Law&Crime previously reported, the neighbors saw Suzanne trying to get away from Brad's grasp when he was trying to pull her down. Brad then chased after his wife and was trying to grab her. Then suddenly, the neighbor heard loud screams coming from the wooded area near the Simpsons' home. At 10:22 that evening, Suzanne's Find My app showed her at her home, which was the last location listed for her on the app. Then about an hour after witnessing Brad and Suzanne fighting, the same neighbor saw Brad get into his pickup truck and leave their home, only to return about an hour later. The couple's 5-year-old daughter told a school counselor the following day that her dad pushed her mom against the wall, hit her in the face, and hurt her mom's elbow inside their home, and then turned off her mom's phone because they were fighting. But earlier that morning, shortly after midnight, Brad and his truck were seen on surveillance video at a San Antonio H-E-B, and his truck bed was clear of everything except a large ice chest. At 7:53 that same morning, surveillance video captured Brad's truck dropping off his daughter at school, and the truck bed contained 2 white trash bags and a large ice chest. Shortly before 9:15 that morning, Simpson's truck was seen on a drive-through camera at a Whataburger in Kendall County, Texas. Surveillance footage reportedly showed 3 white trash bags, a heavy-duty trash can, an ice chest, and a bulky item wrapped and secured in blue tarp that was held down by a firewood rack in the back of Brad's truck. And Brad allegedly made more questionable purchases. Shortly before 10 a.m. that same morning, he bought 2 bags of cement, a construction bucket, a box of heavy-duty trash bags, Clorox spray, and insect repellent with cash at a nearby Home Depot. According to authorities, before he had made those purchases, Brad asked an unknown man in the parking lot for directions to the nearest dump in Boerne, Texas. He reportedly tried to cover his tracks, and during that time, he allegedly shut off his cell phone, and his truck was seen near the Kendall County solid waste site. About an hour later at 11:15, his truck was seen at a gas station, but the white trash bags were missing from his truck. However, the blue tarp, firewood rack, and trash can were all still in his vehicle. And he made a fashion change too. He went from black sandals to dark-colored cowboy-styled boots. Hours later, Simpson was seen picking up his daughter from school, but according to authorities, his truck bed was clear of the blue tarp and metal firewood rack. By 4:07, he was seen on surveillance video washing and cleaning the driver's front side and rear left passenger side of his truck at a San Antonio car wash. But during that evening, loved ones of Suzanne believed something was off. They hadn't heard from her. Suzanne's sister would tell People magazine she believed something was off when Suzanne didn't pick up their youngest child from kindergarten, which is something she always did. Brad hadn't called police or called 911 to report his wife missing, so a friend of Suzanne's contacted police. Brad reportedly called police too and left a voicemail, but when officers called him back, he reportedly told them he hadn't heard from his wife since the night before. Things took another turn when Brad called his friend and business partner James Val Cotter. In text messages to his friend, Brad allegedly wrote, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul to meet me at your house? I don't have much time." And Cotter allegedly wrote, "Get over here. I won't tell anyone. And you're my brother." But by October 9th, Brad was arrested, initially not charged with murder. He was brought in on charges of assault causing bodily injury, family violence, and unlawful restraint. When Texas Rangers executed a search warrant on the Simpsons' Almost Park home, a ranger saw an indentation located on the wall at the bottom of the stairway. One of the Simpsons' daughters told police that damage was recent and wasn't there when she previously visited the home. And later that day, when rangers searched Brad's property in Bandera County, they found a ground-level burn site with a burnt laptop and multiple cell phones. Rangers confirmed there was a positive match for blood inside Brad's truck, but later learned the blood belonged to Brad. But throughout all the searches, no sign of Suzanne. However, Brad's friend James Val Cotter was arrested on October 21st after agreeing to hide an AK-47 for Brad in the wall of his home. Cotter was charged with tampering with evidence and possessing a prohibited weapon. Officials believe Brad Simpson killed Suzanne on October 6th, and with a mountain of evidence against Brad Simpson, authorities seemingly had enough to charge him with the murder of his wife and mother of his children. A lot to unpack with this case. I'm joined now by retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt. Colin, thank you so much for joining me today. We've been following this case since the beginning, and it seems like there's always this new twist. But this affidavit really does piece together so many clues in the Suzanne Simpson case. What's your reaction to hearing, in a way, her eerily predicting her own death? She told her personal banker if she went missing to look for her in a lake.
Well, it's obvious that there was a history of spousal abuse or domestic violence, and so she was already having feelings that this guy, his behavior was getting more and more violent. So she was telling her friends that, hey, watch out, watch out. It's just unfortunate she wasn't able to get to a shelter or get to some of her friends to get away from this guy before he, did the final act.
Yeah. And, according to the affidavit as well, it appears that Brad Simpson went to great lengths to kind of cover up what he allegedly had done to his wife. But there's overwhelming surveillance video as well, too. Why do you think he didn't account for that?
Well, I think he was so caught up in the emotion of the act, and it sounds like this had been building inside of him as well because of the behaviors that he did to hide the crime, even though it wasn't a very well thought out in terms of his actions to hide it. So I think basically he was so overwhelmed by either by anger or whatever emotion, or then after he did the act, fear, that he just wasn't thinking clearly in terms of how to hide his tracks.
This is a gruesome story, and this affidavit continues to piece together so many clues. But I want to quickly give thanks to our sponsors that help us continue to bring you these stories, like Odoo. I'm sure a lot of you watching this might be business owners or thinking about starting a side hustle. Well, Odoo can help. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software with tools to help you run your business. I mean, look, I'm a cat mom and I want my cat to get some brand deals. Using Odoo's website builder, I built a site for my cat Buttons in just minutes, thanks to easy tools like AI copywriting and drag and drop features. 5 minutes later, boom, check it out. I now have buttonsthecat.odoo.com. So I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring our videos. And for our amazing viewers, you can start building your site now and get a free domain for the first year with our link, odoo.com/lcnews13. Again, that's odoo.com/lcnews13 to try Odoo now for free. And how important is like all that cell phone data, the text messages, the surveillance video, the witness statements, and all this other evidence that really does kind of point to Brad Simpson allegedly being kind of at the center of all of this. How important will that be, especially if the case goes to trial?
Well, when I started in law enforcement, you would start with people in terms of interviews. Now, the first step of any investigation now is the cell phone. Whether it be if you have a suspect, you're going to get his phone or get the phone data from the phone companies. So the cell phone data is basically going to be the star, because as of yesterday, I don't think they had found the body yet, and they're going to be able to track him from point A to point B to show his behaviors. And even though I believe he may have even turned off his phone, that also adds to the circumstantial evidence against him.
And as you just mentioned, it has been several weeks since Suzanne Simpson was last seen. Her body hasn't been found. Where does the search effort go from here since it's been so many weeks?
Well, once again, it goes to the phone to see if there's any pings or any kind of leads that they can get off of the phone, not only from the GPS data and the pinging data of the phone hitting cell towers, but also any text messages, any photographs, any metadata that might be behind some of these photographs, any places that he may be familiar with, that they're going to go look to see if they can find the body. And generally speaking, when somebody dumps a body, it's usually within 10 to 20 feet of a pathway, because unless it's well thought out, and in this case, it doesn't appear that it was.
And my this is a little personal for me because my family does live in Texas. I've been out to that area, a lot of times, and it is kind of spaced out. It's a little rural, it's a little, country in a way. To how difficult does that make that effort for law enforcement to possibly go and look for Suzanne, especially when you're kind of dealing with all the different elements, especially in that area of Texas?
Well, I'm speculating that they're probably going to start using drone technology, because it's a lot easier to search areas like that from the air and to see if they can find something with a drone with a very good camera. The other thing is, you're right. If it is a rural area, they're going to have to get searchers that are familiar with the area and familiar with the elements, to ensure that none of the search party gets injured as well. So I believe that they'll have a grid pattern, but the first step is to kind of narrow down the search locations to ensure the success of their search.
And, as we kind of unpack all the different layers of the technology and just the whole gruesome and horrific aspect of a husband allegedly murdering his wife of 22 years, there's this other part of me that always kind of goes to how the entire family is affected by this. Obviously, the children have, according to these court documents, that they've kind of witnessed what was going on inside that household. They may have seen things that we may not know or aren't privy to just yet, but what are your thoughts about the whole aspect of it being a family on family type of crime, as well as this other component that the children might have seen something really disturbing that had happened that night, especially their 5-year-old daughter?
Well, it's heartbreaking to hear these cases, because the children are also going to be victimized for the rest of their lives by the if allegedly, if the father did do this. And unfortunately, they're going to have to be interviewed by law enforcement to determine what they saw or did not see. But this is something that obviously they're going to be living with the rest of their lives, and likely they're going to have to sit down with a professional to work through it.
And then, another layer to this case too was Brad Simpson's longtime friend and business partner or business associate also allegedly being involved in just hiding a weapon for Brad Simpson, allegedly. What do you make of just the text messages back and forth that Brad had allegedly sent to this man, James Val Cotter, just about, can you haul butt if to meet me in Bandera? Can you do this favor for me, that favor being, hiding that weapon in the wall of his home.
Well, we used to call that sometimes felony stupidity. It's likely, I'm speculating, that the friend didn't understand the gravity of what he was doing. He was just trying to help out a buddy, his drinking buddy or whatever. But to do that, I mean, that's the depths of stupidity. Obviously, if anybody in the right mind or understands, basic logic, if somebody had asked me or you or ever to do something like that, I would have been like, hard pass, as well as calling law enforcement.
Now, say you're leading the search effort. Is there any other place that would stick out to you that you would want to search for now, especially in this stage of the investigation?
Well, you're going to look for places that are familiar with the main suspect. If he had a hunting area or an area that he frequented, where he was whatever drinking or hanging out with his buddies, or some area that is just familiar to him. Because generally speaking, from my experience, people will go to areas that they have some sort of familiarity with, to dump a body, because that's their comfort level. And Along with that, though, they also have to look at that historical cell phone data to see if there's some patterns in there as well, to see if they can narrow down the search.
Another thing as well too is while Suzanne Simpson isn't declared officially legally dead, why does that process take so long? I would imagine that at this point, if she were still alive, one, her husband might not have been charged with her murder, but also I would feel that she would make some type of effort to reach out to her loved ones, to reach out to her children. But, as officials kind of are letting the public know that it doesn't look good for her right now, why does it take so long for the process for, officials to declare someone legally dead, even if they haven't found the body?
Well, because there's a process, and when somebody does pass away, there are several other things that kind of come into play. If there's an insurance claim, if there's life insurance, if there's some sort of will, all these things are kind of in the process. So law enforcement wants to make sure, and the authorities want to make sure they have all their ducks in a row before they do something like that, because ultimately they don't want, a very unlikely event, to declare somebody dead, and then there's a payout of an insurance claim, and then all of a sudden this person pops up.
Well, Colin Schmidt, I really appreciate your insight into this case, and I feel like this case will probably take another few twists and turns in the coming weeks, especially as we continue to learn more about this case. Thank you so much for your time. But before we sign you off, is there anything else about this case overall that you would like to add?
Well, it just comes down to, if you or anybody that's watching is aware of some sort of domestic violence, they need to see something, say something, so that something like this doesn't happen to somebody else.
All right, Colin Schmidt, again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. At this time, Brad Simpson remains locked up in the Bexar County Jail on a total bond of $3 million. His next court hearing is slated for December 19th. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.